on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you to everybody who is going to be tuning in. Hop in the chat if you want. We've got a loaded college football show for you guys tonight. It's going to be a fun one. We've got college football playoffs, the FCS playoffs, and whatever else comes up, because who knows what will come up. Grant and I, we were talking about earlier today, or right before we started. Ethan is not going to be able to join us. He's in the midst of a snowstorm right now, as is Grant, but he was need to be closer to work, it sounds like. So not going to be able to join us tonight, unfortunately. But nonetheless, Grant holding down the fort down in Plymouth, Minnesota. I'm back in studio in Dickinson, inside my house, the friendly confines of my house, I guess. Is that what we can say? Friendly confines of my house.
That's fair.
So Michigan does play a game at Wrigley Field next year. So, and that might be a game too that potentially might be able to go to. This sounds like it could be pretty exciting. Grant is. They play that game November 15th. State championship or Dakota Bowl is November 14th. So, potentially, hopefully, if we're able to make it there, there's still a lot that needs to be done, and don't want to get out ahead of my skis here. But if things work out, go win a state championship Friday, get on a flight Friday night, fly to Chicago, go watch Michigan play Northwestern at Wrigley Field. Doesn't sound like a terrible weekend to me. But got to get there first, and who knows? Depending on what happens, might just be able to go to a Michigan Northwestern game. Still haven't been to the Big House, but the only time I've ever seen Michigan play is at TCF Bank. So be nice to see them play a different team in person. Bryce Underwood going to be the starter, it sounds like, but no new coach. But there is a new coach in Chapel Hill. As the is he a 9-time Super Bowl champion, or is it just an 8 or 7? Because
eight times. If you
include
2 as an assistant.
Okay, 8-time Super Bowl champion Bill Belichick has accepted a job to be the head coach at the University of North Carolina, and kind of caught everybody off guard. Now, looking at Carolina's schedule outside of Clemson, their schedule sets up pretty favorably where they might be in the playoff next year. It's going to depend. He hired Michael Lombardi, who's been in the NFL for a long time, somebody who both you and I, Grant, are big fans of. I'm going to miss not having the GM shuffle every Monday, miss hearing him tell stories of Big Daddy Vince. But it is going to be very interesting in Chapel Hill. It's going to come down to roster management, how he's going to be able to get guys in. And it's not like the NFL where they're drafting guys. Players are picking them. So maybe it's going to be easier for his message to get across, where guys are going to be willing to buy in because they chose to play for North Carolina. It wasn't the other way around. And the big thing is Urban Meyer talked about it on the Herd today about how college football recruiting is completely different from what it was 5-10 years ago, where basically the entire month of December you were out on the road recruiting for 3 weeks until Christmas. And now it's more so you're making calls to players' agents, say, hey, what are you getting offered? How much money is school A paying you? You go back to the GM and then decide, okay, well, we'll match that and go from there. It's basically AAA for the NFL right now is basically what college football has turned into at this point.
Yeah, and like I said before, but I'll say it again, they're kind of if you ask me, they're ruining college football with no limit on this. Then you have players who are hitting the transfer portal in season while the college football playoff is going on, having to leave these schools for a chance to play for a national championship. You have players who aren't maybe necessarily good players, but they're just demanding absolutely ridiculous amounts of money, playing time, and just benefits for themselves and their family members. And I think you're going to see a lot of kids going to schools and programs that's not best for them as a football player, but it's best for them financially, which doesn't make any sense, because if you want to make the money to truly have generational wealth, you have to get to the NFL, and you have to learn at the college level how to practice like a pro. And a lot of kids aren't doing it. And I think also, Dylan, that's why the NFL has gone downhill recently. It's because these players are not being developed at the college level, or even take it back to the high school level. It's all 7-on-7. It's drills with no pads on and those funky little helmets they have going on here. This NIL stuff is ruining football as a whole, and I hope they change it, but we'll see.
Well, and when we had Tyler Siskey on, he talked about it. It's a complicated, but it's a very easy solution to solve all this. Is they need to get a governing body. They need to have a commissioner. They need to have a CBA. And a lot of this too is these players' agents, they're a friend. They're not actually certified. They need to get agents that are certified by whenever they get a governing body, which who knows when that's going to happen or if that's even going to happen. Knowing the NCAA, because it's a difficult conversation, tough thing, it's not going to get handled because they don't like doing tough things. But, oh, yeah, well, this is an NCAA thing, but that's a whole other tangent of banning flag planting because Ohio State's a bunch of soft little bitches. But nonetheless, and I mean, Ohio State and the NCAA are one and the same, essentially, just soft, not real leaders and can't handle, the difficult things. But we'll get to Ohio State towards in a little bit. But back to Bill Belichick here. Now, if the kids buy in and if he's able to get a quarterback, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing, because just like any good coach, if you don't have a good quarterback, you're not going to be successful. And it doesn't matter at what level. And so I think Bill Belichick, the guy, he has a plan. He has the idea that, are there going to be adjustments? Yeah, of course. But he has proven throughout the years of his ability to adapt. And I think he has learned from his failures in the NFL I think that's why he brought on Michael Lombardi to be the GM, to kind of handle more of that player personnel role, and someone that Lombardi's going to tell you how it is. He's not afraid. He doesn't care. He's worked with Bill Walsh. He's worked with Al Davis. He's worked with Bill. He is not going to care. If you don't like it, he's going to tell you the truth every time. It doesn't matter. So I think those two together are going to be a good marriage, and I think they're going to build a solid team. And I think the way the ACC is there's a lot of question marks. It's not a very strong conference. They got two teams in somehow, and if Clemson doesn't or Miami doesn't lose to Syracuse, there's probably only going to be one team in. And I think it's a very open ACC, and I think Bill can walk in there and compete for the ACC title and be back in the playoff.
Yeah, and I also wonder, Dylan, if there's coming from Bill, if there's also a sense of arrogance coming from his side, because like we said earlier, 8 Super Bowl titles, 6 as a head coach of New England, 2 as a defensive coordinator with the New York Giants. Is he just looking for a new challenge? He's like, I've dominated the NFL. I'm the greatest coach of all time there. The way that college is going with the transfer portal and the NIL stuff, it's kind of like an NFL team where you need to budget players and say, hey, you know what? Have these tough conversations with these kids. I can give you this. I can give you that. I can't give you this. Is he thinking, you know what? I already kind of have an upper hand or an advantage over all these other schools? And also, he's a competitor. He's arrogant. He wants to go in and maybe dominate a field that he hasn't dominated before. So why not give North Carolina an opportunity and give it a shot?
Yeah, well, we're going to find out. I think the other adjustment he's going to have to learn is that the 20-hour rule is that you're not able to practice you can only practice a certain amount of hours. How is he going to be able to handle that? Usually you see in the NFL, you can basically install an entire offense in your OTAs and minicamp because there aren't any restrictions on how much on practice time, meeting time. And, it's not a full 18-hour day for the players. It is for the coaches, but for the players, they can only practice 20 hours a day, which includes weights, practice, film study, meetings, all of that, because they're in school. So a lot of that install, a lot of that understanding and breakdown is going to be during preseason, where they probably need more practice time. And the Jim Harbaugh approach, and there's certain different circumstances in a sense, but when Harbaugh took over Michigan, when their spring practices were 100% all were 100%. It was just practice, no meetings, nothing, because it was like 4-hour practices every week or 3 times a week. And he said that you don't get better by watching or doing anything else. You get better by playing football, and that's what they did. So I'm curious to see what his plan is, and I'm sure it was in his 400-page manifesto that he presented to North Carolina. North Carolina, and we can book it. The most prepared team in college football next year will be the North Carolina Tar Heels. But let's shift gears. Enough of the which is kind of disappointing that we haven't had the coaching carousel cycle that we've had in the previous years. A little bit disappointing. Rich Rod back at West Virginia. And other than that, it hasn't been overly exciting. Not a lot of big jobs have opened up. But the college football playoff this week is starting. It starts on Friday here. The first time that Notre Dame has not played a home playoff game that isn't on NBC since 1990. And I can't remember when the last time Indiana and Notre Dame played, but I think that was also in the 90s. And game is Notre Dame's a touchdown favorite over the Hoosiers, 6 p.m. on ABC on Friday here. And I think this game is going to come down to quarterback play, if you ask me, Grant. I think both of these quarterbacks, Riley Leonard and Curtis O'Rourke, they're great when things are on schedule and they can stay ahead of the chains. But what happens when it gets into those obvious passing situations? The quarterback that executes the best in those situations, I think, is going to be enough to win this game. And Indiana, you can talk about their schedule. They have dominated, though, the opponents they played outside of Ohio State, and it wasn't overly pretty when they played Ohio State. They were bad on special teams. They got ran through the heart of their defense against Ohio State, which is something that Notre Dame is great at. And I think this might just be a bad matchup for Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame just might end up having a little bit better athletes. I think they're a little bit better up front on both lines, to where I think Notre Dame could potentially – I think Indiana keeps it close for a half, but in the end, I think Notre Dame could possibly pull away.
I'm with you, Dylan. And also, just you kind of look at the strength of the Notre Dame team. It's the defense as a whole, but their front and their offensive line, they're just so big and they're so strong. And I understand Indiana, their defensive front is nice, but they haven't seen anything like what they're about to see, on Friday night. And I also do feel like the moment might be too much for Indiana. Their new coach coming in, saying, "Hey, all I do is win. Google me. I'm successful." Yada 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 yada.
But what has he won? Though that's the problem.
And that's
I don't mean to interrupt you with him, because he's never won a national title. When they have played teams, they've played teams above their competition or equal to. He has not won those games. It goes back to him at JMU. They've played NDSU multiple times, couldn't win. And then every time that they lost, there was some BS excuse, finger pointing, some baby back excuse that was really like I'm. This is why I've been skittish to proclaim Cignetti as the next great thing. But anyways, go back to what you were saying.
Well, exactly. Like, the time they played Ohio State this year where it was supposed to be, hey, let's see if Indiana's for real. Let's see what they got. And they laid an egg and they got obliterated. Like the second half of the Michigan game, Michigan was right there. Indiana was not putting them away like they should have.
And if Michigan had a competent offense and they didn't settle for 2 field goals where they had the ball with inside the 3, Indiana loses that game.
Correct. And I just think he's going to be Cignetti's going to be a little over emotional. And his players are going to be too hyped for this game, and they're going to make mental mistakes that they maybe wouldn't make all year. But also, they're not playing some team that they're going to beat by 50 points. Marcus Freeman, he's got this Notre Dame team aligned, ready to go and attack, and win the day. And I honestly, I'm with you, Dylan. I think Notre Dame's going to win by 2 possessions.
Yeah, so I guess let's get into our prediction for this game. Here, what do you got for a score prediction on this one?
I got 27-12 Notre Dame.
27-12 Notre Dame. I'm close. I think Notre Dame scores one more touchdown. I got Notre Dame 34, Indiana 16 here. And we'll go Grant, I'll let you take the lead on this one. We got Penn State versus SMU. Penn State 8.5-point favorites, 10 a.m. on TNT and Max. I don't know the last time you watched a football game on TNT, other than when the replacements was on.
Oh, probably never. Because when was the last time TNT had a football game?
I don't know I don't ever remember them having a game.
I don't think they've ever had one. It's kind of unfortunate. If there's one game this weekend where you're sitting back and you're like, maybe I'm not feeling it, it's this one right here. Just for me anyway, because SMU and what was their biggest game of the year earlier, just in the ACC title game against Clemson, you could tell the moment was a little too big for them. There in the first half, they got down, and they weren't ready for the atmosphere that was the ACC title game there in Charlotte. And this is going to be so much different because you're going into Happy Valley, where it's going to be 110,000 people wearing white. Also, maybe a little snow on the ground. How is the team from Dallas going to bounce back from that? So I want to see how SMU comes out in the first half, and if they truly are ready to play, or if they're just a little emotional, and the moment is too big for them, where they're going to get down early and they're going to make some mistakes, and they're going to have to fight and scratch and claw their way back, and it might not be enough. But in return, this is a huge game for James Franklin because he can't win the big game. What is he, 1-10 against top 5 opponents in his time in Penn State? Like, when he needs to win a game, he doesn't win a game. Like, what's his signature victory? 2016 when they blocked a field goal against Ohio State? At Penn State, besides that, everyone's like, oh, this is a good program, they're a good team, this and that. It's like, well, are they? Because when you have a top 10 recruiting class every single year on paper, when you're 10-2 and you're beating Michigan State and you're beating Wisconsin, you're beating Iowa and Minnesota, but you're losing to Michigan and Ohio State, are you really that good of a program? Are you the 6th best team in this country? Or is it just the helmet that's getting you by? So I want to see how this Penn State team comes out in a must-win, but again, in a situation where they're playing a team where they should beat these guys by 2 touchdowns. So I'll be intrigued to see how each team comes out and ready to play, because SMU, the last time they came in a big game like this, they weren't ready. In Penn State, they can never win the game they have to win under James Franklin.
Yeah, and to Franklin's credit, this is a game that in the past I think I would pick Penn State to win just because he has done a good job of beating the teams they are supposed to beat. They're two. If Michigan, Oregon, Penn State, or Ohio State didn't exist, we're probably talking about him being a national champion winning head coach. Now, I've been on record saying this, and I'll continue to say this. Penn State and Ohio State are the exact same team. They are a finesse bitch team, and which basically means that they're not a tough team. The difference is that Ohio State has better players at every position than Penn State does, and that's why Ohio State has come away with those wins. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a whiteout game. And there's going to be snow on the ground. I think this is potentially a bad matchup stylistically for SMU just because of they like to throw the ball around. Their quarterback has had issues with turnovers. And I think that pass rush for Penn State is going to be able to tee off and possibly create it's going to be a tough environment. It's going to be loud. It's going to be raucous. And, how is SMU's O-line going to be able to hold up? How are they going to be able to communicate? I think the games that Tom Allen is going to play up front is going to confuse SMU, especially if they aren't able to communicate. I think that's something that, you can practice with the noise all you want, but until you're actually in it, I don't think people understand how loud that place can be. And I think SMU might be able to score some points. They might get a couple of big plays, but I don't think in the end, it's going to be enough. I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain drives and be able to keep Penn State off the field. Prediction for me is I'm going to go Penn State 41, SMU 24.
Okay. I'm with you, Dylan. I think Penn State wins this game fairly easy, but I'll go 31-13.
31-13. A little bit lower scoring. Grant going with a little bit lower scoring. I'm going with the higher scoring game here. And let's go to the Texas versus Clemson game, 2 p.m. on TNT/Max. Texas 12-point favorites here in this one. This game is going to be played in Austin. Cade Klubnik gets to come home. He is a local kid from Austin. Him and Quinn Ewers actually faced off in the Texas State Championship game back in, it would have been in 2020 because Ewers was left early and was a freshman in 21 at Ohio State. Big question for Texas is what's the health status of Quinn Ewers? Because he has missed a couple of games. He hasn't looked healthy, and I think that's part of the reason why Texas's offense hasn't looked as good as they have. And it also doesn't help losing. I think this is where you've seen that their lack of depth at the running back position because they lost 2 before the season even started. Mm-hmm. But the defense has been outstanding for Texas. I think that's part of the play calling for Sark is it hasn't been as creative as what it was. Is I think he's just kind of relied on that defense. It's like, okay, get us a lead, let our defense get out there, and let's just not put them in bad spots. And when they've done that, they've won. Maybe it's just Texas has a Georgia problem, but are we going to see Arch Manning? And Texas's defense, I think, is going to be a problem for Clemson. I think Clemson might be able to move the ball from 20 to 20, but I don't think they are consistent enough offensively to sustain drives and stay with Texas. And I think Texas is going to be able to get Klubnik to turn the ball over a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dylan, because this Achilles heel for this Clemson program these last 4 years has been the offensive side of the ball. And it's been that case even this year. I know last week against SMU, or 2 weeks ago against SMU, They had a good day at the office, but before that, when they played South Carolina the week before, scored 16 points. The week before that against Pittsburgh, needed a big second half to come back and win that game. You're just not going to do it against this Texas front at DKR with two freshman wide receivers. I just don't see it happening. I think this Clemson defense is salty enough where they're going to be able to keep them in this game for about 3 quarters. Where when Texas has struggled this year, it's been against big, fast, athletic defensive lines. Clemson has that. Is it Georgia's? No. But will they be able to hang around and make some plays in the backfield, not let Texas get the running game going, and have them be one-dimensional? I think they will for a bit, yes. But with the lack of explosiveness that is this Clemson offense, eventually this Clemson defense is going to be on the field a lot. And I think that's when Sark slowly breaks them and Texas advances. But I will say this, if I'm Clemson, I'm going out right away. I want take a couple deep shots. Empty the bag. Like truly Dabo, you want to talk about championship games, orange championship games. Guess what? This is it. Maybe go for a fake punt. Have a flea flicker. Go to some passing concepts you haven't done all year. Empty the bag out. Because what do you have to lose? You're a 9-3 team who won your conference, got in the college football playoff. Now is the time to go out and then just do anything in your power to advance and try to get maybe hot at the end of the year. Because if your offense gets going early, then your defense will get going and they'll feel better, and they might make a play or two. And then we've seen Texas this year; they can have more turnovers than your local bakery. And they struggled this year against Georgia and let them in the game. And when you're playing Texas and you make them beat you situationally, where the game is tight, they've proven they haven't been able to do it this year. But with that being said, I do think Texas is just the bigger, faster, stronger roster, and I think they have a better head coach now. And I do think Texas ends up winning this game.
I agree. I got Texas 30. Texas wins, but Clemson covers. Texas 31, Clemson 20.
I was gonna go Texas 30, Clemson 17.
Okay. All right. Well, we're close. So it's probably going to be Clemson's going to win, Indiana's going to win, SMU's going to win, and the final game of the day, Grant, Ohio State versus Tennessee. Ohio State's 7-point favorite. This game is 6 p.m. on ABC and ESPN here. I'll let you start us off here with your preview.
Boy, this is an interesting game. Honestly, after the Michigan game, I thought this game was going to be played in Knoxville. To be honest, Dylan, but Ohio State gets the home game, and in a weird way, I feel like Ohio State almost needs to get out of the state of Ohio because
we talked about that.
Yep, after just losing to Michigan and all the negative media that was all the people on local radio, people on the internet. It's a lot for Ohio State. And the one thing about this game I do wonder about is their mental well-being. And when I say that, Ryan Day always wants to talk about when you play Michigan, it's like going to war. Playing Michigan, it's like war. You have consequences, yada, yada, yada.
I don't know if you've heard what he was saying is that their only goal this year was to make 12-team playoff. It wasn't win the Big Ten. It wasn't beat Michigan. It was just to make the 12-team playoff. Basically, the AD and Ryan Day have minimized that this game the Michigan-Ohio State game doesn't matter anymore.
Well, yeah, when you lose 4 in a row, it doesn't matter.
All the while they wear blue jerseys and they put on winged helmets during that week. But game doesn't matter.
And they cross out all the M's on campus with red tape.
Yeah.
But I wonder where Ohio State will be
And
at
then
mentally.
cries and tries to fight after Michigan plants a flag.
Mm-hmm. I
Which,
wonder where
when you walk in the trap, you take over the trap. Anyways, I got my digs in here. I'll stop interrupting you.
But where's Ohio State going to be at mentally for this game? Are they going to be up and ready for a dogfight? Or are they going to be still kind of mentally lulled or shot from losing to Michigan, that they're not ready to go out and face a salty Tennessee team? And when I say salty Tennessee team, I mean Tennessee's defense. Tennessee's offense this year has been underwhelming. They've had bad games, and they've had games where they've taken them a full half to get going. And against this Ohio State defense, you can't do that right away. But in return, I think Tennessee's defense is legit, and their front is nasty, where I think they're going to be able to slow Ohio State down a little bit. So this game's going to come down to one, which team doesn't turn the ball over, or two, which offense can finally get that explosive play. Like Tennessee, the first 4 weeks of the year looked like a wagon. We're like, there's no one beating them. Nico's the guy. Heupel's got this thing turned around. And then when they got to the heart of the SEC schedule, they looked like they were just stuck in mud. And then for Ohio State, can Will Howard be the guy? Can he be the difference maker? Can they get these two running backs going? And they get the play action going with Jeremiah Smith and Abuka. I don't know what to expect from either of these teams, but I expect both defenses to show up. And I think which offense can avoid the negative play or which defense can force that negative play is going to be the difference in this game. I think this is going to be the most competitive game of the weekend. And also two coaches that I really almost can't say I trust in big moments. Who's going to have that like the Ravens effect last year when they play the Chiefs, when they get away from their game plan because nothing goes good early? Who's going to have the confidence to sit back and say, you know what, we've known about this game for 2 weeks. We've known this is going to be our 13th game of the year for this roster. We know what our players are capable of and not capable of. We can sit back and trust the game plan. Who's going to do that? Which coach is going to panic and scrap everything they've just talked about these last 2 weeks and try something different to make a play? And that will be the coach who loses this game.
Yeah. And I think for Ohio State is I think they really need to utilize that quick game in the pass, because that, like you said, that Tennessee front seven is nasty. Ohio State's offensive line is beat up. I don't think they're going to have time to be able to take some deep shots. I think if they're able to get that quick game going and maybe go up a little bit more tempo, get that Tennessee defense tired, I think that gives them the best chance to win. A couple of years ago when Michigan beat Ohio State and Ohio State had a couple of weeks to prepare for Georgia, they came out swinging, and they were the aggressor. They were the aggressive team, and probably arguably should have beaten Georgia that year. Are they going to do that? Are they going to try to prove to everybody that there's some tough physical team and try to get into a phone booth? Because I think if they try and get into a phone booth with Tennessee, they're going to lose. I think if they had a healthy offensive line and all of their starters from week one, I think they might have been able to, but I think they're too beat up for that. Is Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, are they going to be able to put their pride aside and just play to their strengths and go out and execute here? And let's go to what do we got for predictions here on this one?
This will be my only one on the weekend where I think the road team wins, Dylan.
Ooh.
I still think Ohio State is mentally not over that loss to Michigan. I think they're a fragile team. They're listening to the noise, and these players are sitting back like I don't think they believe in their coaching staff in these big moments. All of these seniors who have been there for 4 years, it's like they can't beat Michigan. You know, they should have put Georgia away that year when they had the opportunity. I just don't think it's going to happen. And the difference is C.J. Stroud. Will Howard is not C.J. Stroud, Dylan. To your point, like when they had Georgia on the ropes 2 years ago, Stroud willed that team to almost get a victory. Will Howard is not that guy. And I think Tennessee's defense is the one who's going to come up and who is going to make more plays. That'll be the difference in this game. And also, I think the fans are going to have something to do with this. There's going to be a lot of orange and white in that stadium. And it's going to give the Tennessee players, I think, some juice. And I think Nico is going to finally make a play when he has to with his legs or with his arm. And I think Tennessee's going to pull off the quote upset.
Well, they are touchdown underdogs. And I don't know if you heard this, but for these playoff games, it sounds like they're taking away the public address announcers, like the regular home public address announcers, and bringing in some guy neutral. The visiting team can run out to kind of have their own type of thing, the way they would run out into like a bowl game type situation, which is stupid. It's a home game. This is also the same. I completely disagree. That's the best part of a home playoff game, is having a home field advantage. You've earned that through the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I originally picked Ohio State to win 26-21. But Grant, I think you flipped it, because after what I was mentioning earlier about them, this game, Michigan, our goal was only to win the 12 team, make the 12 team playoff. And the talking, I think Ohio State has been notorious this year for getting off to slow starts. What happens if they go 3 and out their first drive and Tennessee goes down the field and scores? What's going to be the energy of that crowd? How are they going to react? When we had Isaiah Hole on, he talked about how there was that nervous energy and it was a lot more boos. What are we doing? And the team did not feed off that well. And I think that's potential for that to happen. And I also don't think, by the way they are talking, they care more about teams planting the flag, because they just passed it into law, which is ridiculous. Like, there's got to be bigger issues in the state of Ohio. Well, there is people eating dogs and cats. But
not the dogs and not the cats.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
But let's ban flag planting. So I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I've got Tennessee 23, Ohio State 21.
And I'm gonna go Tennessee 23, Ohio State 19.
20. All right. So we're close in our score predictions. So if you're betting, probably pick again who we picked to lose. That's going to win here. And college football playoff is going on. We've got the FCS playoffs going on as well. The 2 semifinal games are going to be going on during the first 2 playoff games of the day here. Starting off is the NDSU South Dakota State game, which actually, we obviously got to wrap that one at the end. So we'll start with the second game of the day is Montana State versus University of South Dakota. That's a 1:30 on ABC game here. Montana State is 8-point favorites, and watching this Montana State team, they are on a mission. They are pissed off from what happened the last couple of years. This gives off kind of that 2011 NDSU team that won that first national title, where they use those previous years' season-ending disappointments to motivate them, and they are hungry to get back there. From 21 time, that senior class, they lost in the national championship game to NDSU. The next year, they went on the road to Brookings and got thumped. The next year, they were blocked. Hunter Ponches blocked the PAT, and they lost in overtime. This year, they are undefeated. They have ran the table. They have beaten everybody with pretty much ease outside of the New Mexico game, that first game of the year. And they're awake. And Tommy Millott is probably going to win the Walter Payton Player of the Year award, which is basically the Heisman of the FCS. People can debate that all you want. I don't have a vote. If I had a vote, I'd vote for Cam Miller, but that's neither here nor there. And on the flip side, this South Dakota team, they don't quit. They are a feisty bunch. I thought when NDSU went up 2 scores with 5 minutes to go, I thought it was in the bag. NDSU was going to be winning the 1 seed. South Dakota makes a miraculous comeback. May have been aided by some non-holding calls by the officials that worked out in South Dakota's favor, but nonetheless, they're a gritty team. They're well coached. They got a good quarterback. They've got 2 really good running backs. But in the end, I think Montana State, like I said, they're on a mission. They aren't losing. They're not losing at home. I have Montana State 31, South Dakota 17.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend I know a whole lot about this Montana State team or the South Dakota team, Dylan. But I watched Montana State play last week, and they are absolutely mowing people. So I like Montana State to win this game. I'm gonna go 34-20.
34-20. All right, Grant finally has a higher scoring game than me here in our predictions here, and well, let's get to this last one before we get to curveball of the week. It's the big one. It's NDSU versus South Dakota State. NDSU is a 3-point. This line has been jumping up. I think it opened as South Dakota State as a 2.5-point favorite, and then I saw it drop down to 1.5. And right when I looked right before we started recording, NDSU is now 3-point home dogs to this one. This is 10 a.m. on ABC.
Oh, wow.
And I understand the line right now. South Dakota State is the healthier team at this point. NDSU is pretty beat up on defense and offensive line. I thought they didn't play great after losing Jake Rock and having kind of fill some spots. But on defense, it sounds like they're going to get Marcus Shepard and Luke Wirtz back. Luke Wirtz had probably his best game as a Bison against South Dakota State, made a lot of tackles. South Dakota State, since losing to NDSU, has just dominated everybody they have played. And in that game, it looked like South Dakota State really struggled for receivers to get open downfield. And Gronowski had happy feet, and he threw the ball away a good number of times. Even when I thought he had guys open, he's hitting them now. I think the big thing is on the receiving core, if you got to shut one guy down, it's going to be sophomore receiver Griffin Wilde. He's kind of the guy that makes them go on the outside and opens it up for everybody else. Their running backs, they're solid running backs, the 2 Johnsons, and they aren't the Isaiah Davis or Pierre Strong, but they're still respectable backs. Gronowski's a good runner. Chase Mason, the backup quarterback that they have in spots, is also a good runner. He had their only touchdown against the Bison earlier in that game. And when you watched back at that game, it was a stalemate. But I don't think you give the offense or defense on either side the edge. But there was the team that won the special teams was NDSU. NDSU, they blocked the PAT. There was a missed field goal. NDSU was really good on their kickoff coverage, pinning South Dakota State deep. South Dakota State had a couple of penalties. And I think NDSU is going to have to find a way to win again on special teams. No mistakes. They missed a field goal, but it ended up not costing them. And what this game has come down to in the end, the last 5 times they have played, is who's won the turnover battle. The game in October, NDSU won the turnover battle. That was the first time they've won that. They picked off Gronowski late to seal the game. I expect this game to be another rock fight. Cam Miller has not played great in the semifinals. He's cut some of the turnover bug too. He's throwing 3 interceptions the last 2 games, 2 playoff games. He's got to avoid that. I've chalked it up as trying to getting the turnovers out of his system. Last time playing in the Fargo Dome, a guy that he's only beaten the one time, trying to end Mark Gronowski's career, tied with Easton Stick for most wins in the FCS. And don't let him get that 50th win. Try to keep it there. I think he's going to have a big game. I think NDSU trying to play to their strengths I would expect them to try and throw the ball early and often, try to use the pass to open up the run. And the big thing is they did a great job too on the defensive side of tackling. They tackled really well in that game against South Dakota State. They got to do it again. They got to wrap up. They got to fly to the ball. And it's going to be another rock fight. It's going to be a rock fight. It's going to be a chew glass. Grant probably will not sit for that entire game because it's just going to be that much of a exciting on the edge of your seat type of game. And I might have to be texting you. You might have to be my therapist like you've been for the Michigan-Ohio State game the last 4 years. But I'm sure I know you haven't probably watched much South Dakota State or NDSU, but do you have any input on this one?
I think the team who is the least emotional is going to win this game on Saturday. Because, yes, you have the rivalry between both of these schools. Both of these schools do not like each other, and it's well known. But this isn't a regular season game now. This is win or go home for a chance to go to Frisco and play for a national title. Why you work all the hours you do in the offseason, in the weight room, in the film room with coaches and everything else like that, putting your body to the limit. Whoever is the team who's the least emotional and can compartmentalize and realize, hey, football is a simple game. It comes down to tackling and blocking. And covering my guy and running good routes to get open. Whatever team does that more is going to end up winning this football game. And then which coaching staff, again, like I said, kind of with the Tennessee and Ohio State one, can keep their team calm. Because the emotions are going to be so high in this game. You know what? Hey, you know what? South Dakota State runs for a 65-yard touchdown in the first quarter, and it's 7-3. That's okay. Because guess what? There's still 48 minutes left of football to play in this game. Like we can't get too high. We can't get too low. That's going to be the hardest part about this game because these teams know what other team's going to do. They know what they're going to do. They know what they're not going to do. But who can keep their team calm and emotional, and they don't go out and make impulsive decisions, is going to be the team that wins this game.
Yep, this does kind of feel like a Michigan-Ohio State game. The game's played in that first window right away in the day. Get it out of the way, go play, have fun, fly around, do your job, go win. Now predictions here. Who do you got?
Give me North Dakota State. Give me NDSU, because Dylan, like you said, they're not going to let Gronowski come in and get that 50th win on their territory. And I think South Dakota State, being that they lost in the regular season, going to be a little emotional. They're going to come in, try to get their revenge, try to eliminate NDSU again from this season. And the South Dakota State team is good, but they're not what they have been in the past. And when I say the past, these last couple of years, it's going to come back to bite them in the ass. And I think NDSU wins a tough game, 24-20.
24-20. Okay, I had the higher scores in the FBS games. Grant has the higher scores in the FCS games. I got NDSU, another tight one. I got NDSU 21, South Dakota State 17 here. So go Bison, horns are always up. And before we wrap up the show here, Grant, what do you got for curveball of the week?
So Dylan, kind of a Christmas themed question here.
Oh boy.
I'm
of
wondering.
which, can you show us your Christmas tree that was popping off in our podcast chat because I shared mine, and I have some thoughts on it. But anyways, can you show us yours? That's the conversation starter.
I can walk upstairs. And the reason
it's upstairs.
it's upstairs. I can walk upstairs.
Ah.
The reason why it's a conversation starter is because when you compare it to what it's sitting next to. But
oh boy,
to get the question rolling here, Dylan, I want to know what is the strangest Christmas gift someone said they were going to get you, but they ended up not getting it. Like, what is the strangest Christmas gift you almost received?
The strangest Christmas gift I almost. Ooh, man, I have no idea on that one.
So it doesn't do it, but this stupid little tree here that's about 3 feet high is up year round.
It's up year round. Okay, yep, I can see that.
Alec and I have not taken it down in 6 years, but what makes it interesting is look at this. It's next to a 98-inch television that he just bought. So Ethan was joking the other day, Alec's Christmas tree is the conversation starter in this room, not the 98-inch TV. It's this little 2.5-foot tree right there.
And you know what? I'm going to make the argument because Ethan was kind of roasting us for our trees, which I'm not going to lie here. This was also brought to my attention by one of my buddies, is that men are not made to decorate. So if you're a guy, and especially in our current situations, Grant, where we are single, we're about as single as they get. If we've got a fully decked out and perfect Christmas tree, it's probably a little bit suspect for us to do it.
Well, and let's call a spade a spade. When did Ethan get a nice, big, beautiful Christmas tree? When he met Hannah.
Correct. And it's not his. It's not his.
And it's not his.
It's hers.
No, it's 100% hers.
But now that we're on this phase, we can kind of light him up. Is the he wanted Beth to die, and this is our Yellowstone talk. So if you haven't seen the finale, I would turn it off here at this point because there will be some spoilers. But he was hoping Beth would die, because he thinks Jamie was screwed over from the start, which I can't get around that. Knowingly having his sister's uterus removed, I can't get around that Jamie was screwed over. Jamie did everything on himself.
Correct. And Jamie, his whole life, people have made decisions for him, and he's never been able to make his own decision and be the man that he is. And again, that just continued into the end here. He wasn't calling the shots on doing anything like this. Yeah, he's a spineless man who is just seeking approval from anywhere he can get it. And since he couldn't get it from his family, he reached out to third parties. And also, let's call a spade a spade. You knew going into that Beth was going to come out alive.
Oh, 1,000%.
They were, you know why? Because they made this last season about her. She was the main character.
The other part of it too, I after watching this, I've really learned how you can cover up a murder after watching these last few episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but back to the strangest Christmas present that almost received.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know.
And you see, I knew this might be a tough question. So I'll go first, because then maybe once you hear my answer, you'll be like, oh, this makes more sense. A couple years ago, my dad looked at me. Let's say I was 25 years old, an adult. Okay, I'm old enough to rent a car. He looked at me and he said, you know what I wanted to buy you this year for Christmas, Grant? I wanted to buy you an adult-sized thing of the footy pajamas you wear as a kid.
Oh, that would have been good.
I'm like, what? Why would you waste your money and do that? Like, yeah, that just doesn't make any sense.
I would love to see you in some footy pajamas. I think that would be funny.
Boy, wouldn't that be something?
That would be some things you can't unsee, bro.
Yeah, and that's one of them.
So the last couple of years, I don't know if this counts, but so we would do it'd be a bunch of different presents that would be like, and it'd be some type of game we would play within our family, like my mom's side of the family. And there was this ugly ass jacket that like I was stuck with for a little bit and was able to get away with it. But had the game of played out, I would have ended up getting this really ugly jacket that was probably way too small for me, and I would have had zero reason to wear it. So I guess you could say that. And I'm sure at some point along the line, somebody said they were going to get me some Eagles shit, which is also kind of funny, is on my Christmas tree. I have 0 ornaments of Michigan, the Cowboys, or NDSU. But do you know what I do have, Grant? I have a Brett Favre Packers ornament, Hallmark ornament. I got a Donovan McNabb Hallmark ornament. I have a John Elway Hallmark ornament. I have a Dan Marino Hallmark ornament. I have like a Steelers ornament. I have a 49ers ornament. I got a Vikings ornament. I got an Albert Pujols ornament.
Interesting.
Carmelo Anthony. I got a Houston Rockets backboard. My mom just dropped it off. She's like, well, I brought you some ornaments to hang up. I was like, okay. I didn't hang these up. I had a Derek Jeter and Jason Giambi Hallmark ornament too. I don't know.
That is strange.
I think I went shot when I was young, and that's what Hallmark sold. And I guess that's what I wanted, and that's what I got, I guess. Yeah.
That is strange. I mean, maybe not the question, but if we re-ask it to what's the strangest Christmas ornament you have on your tree, that tops the cake.
It makes no sense. Makes absolutely zero sense. Nope. But I think that wraps up the show here. So for those that are in my neck of the woods in the Dickinson area, I will be doing play-by-play on the Consolidated channel tomorrow night. I got 2 games for the Rough Rider tournament. Is Dickinson Trinity, which I'm going to be calling kids that I coached for the first time ever, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's going to be different. And it's going to be Dickinson Trinity versus, I got to look here. It's just great podcasting. But let's see here. What do I got? I have, where is it? Okay. I have Dickinson Trinity. They're going to be playing Belfield. And then I also have Beach versus Bowman County. So if you have the Consolidated channel, tune in. I will be doing the play-by-play for both of those games tomorrow night in Bowman. But that wraps up the show here. We will be back hopefully next week. We got to figure that out. This Christmas on a Wednesday and Christmas Eve Tuesday is really kind of throwing a wrench into the podcasting thing, where realistically, probably the only night we'll really be able to do it is Monday. And we'll see if we'll be able to get one out. But if not, we'll be back the week after and ready to record for the college football playoff, the quarterfinal games. Check us out on all of our social medias. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. You're following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And with that, thank you guys again for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week or whenever we talk to you again.